You are.
Apparently we're live. 3, 2, 1, go! Well, welcome back. It's just early, the Comic Concierge and
Logan Fleming.
Kaufman.
Kaufman. Da 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 da. Better than Yawn Man.
Sponsored by Halls. So we have when we left off, we were talking about the Silver Age of comic books and DC's efforts in that area. And the reason that these are up here is because it's Marvel Night. It's just to remind us of where we were. Now, you were looking up a link for me, weren't you?
Which link?
The link I put on earlier today on our on the actual page, talking about the Marvel Age of Comics.
I believe so.
In case you can't pull it up, I'm just going to pull some of these numbers out of my head from what I saw earlier this morning.
Let me see what I can do.
Basically, what we're going to do here, and we also want to keep track of limiting me to about 10 minutes because we have awesome things to show you. So basically, the reason I'm putting these out here is because we remember that the Silver Age of Comics started with the Silver Age Flash, Showcase number 4, 1957-6. And everything from DC started there, where they revamped and brought back the characters of the Golden Age. Green Lantern, Hawkman, etc. This here is out to remind me that Justice League of America 21 was the first appearance of the crossover with the Golden Age of a parallel Earth. The concept of a crisis with parallel Earths, and the start of the early team-ups and so on. Now, that is all to remind me that in Justice League 24, in the letters page, they printed a letter from a guy who suggested that after looking at Justice League of America number 21, and bringing back the stars from the Golden Age, maybe we were in a Silver Age of comics honoring the Golden Age. It was really cool to see, and it was kind of the first use of the concept of a Golden Age, Silver Age, what would become Bronze later, because, the Olympics and such, it's just a natural progression. It was the first appearance of that concept in the letters page of Justice League of America number 24, talking about that book when it came out, because, of course, the letters pages were like 2-3 months behind. They were talking about issues 2 or 3 months gone. Now, we tell you all that to tell you this. DC was rolling with its Silver Age from 56, 57 on, 5 years before Marvel introduced its first superhero. Marvel used to be Timely, then it became Atlas, and then it became the Marvel Comics Group. But its first superhero group, capitalizing on the success of what DC was doing and slowly building up steam, because it was popular, but it wasn't an immediate success in terms of we have to start grinding out product. It grew on the people, and it was well received, but it was slow growth. But it took them 5 years to produce their own product. Now, if you take a look at the we had it here a second ago. If you take a look at the chronology of when Marvel titles got produced, their very first one was the Fantastic Four in 1961, very late 1961. And the idea behind that was a super group of their own, all new characters, like the Justice League. So here we have the second to the earliest Fantastic Four I actually have, number 22. I have a number 20, which is the first Mole Man, but the reason I picked this one, number 20 is the first Molecule Man, but the reason I picked this one is because the Mole Man was the first villain the Fantastic Four faced, and I don't have one of those, and this is a very clean cover. It kind of shows you how Marvel used to do things back then with thick word balloons.
January 1964.
Heavily shaded, the thing with the red shading and so on. The art was a little different. Jack Kirby was still coming into his own with these characters. He dialed it in perfectly with the best inker he was ever paired with for these heroes in the mid-'60s with Joe Sinnott. But right now, we're talking about 1964 with the Fantastic Four being started in 61. And if you take a look at this timeline, comics for Marvel were produced once every 2 months. So they only had the one superhero title, Fantastic Four, that was it. And then 2 months later, they put out another one. And when they put out the next one, the next thing that they invented to go with it was Ant-Man in Tales to Astonish number 27, and that was a science fiction story with no costume, the man from the anthill. And what you had there was, in the next time he appeared, he had a costume. as a superhero concept, but it was still science fiction. It was still science fiction concept at that time. He shrunk down. He had to survive in a world that was, the size of insects. Beyond Ant-Man, and we're talking about publishing every 2 months or so. We got January, we got March, we got May, we got July, August, September. It wasn't for 8 months that they were able to start publishing monthly. August, September, October. We're talking 1962. By the time Amazing Fantasy number 15 came out, which was the very first Spider-Man, which we'll get to in a second, Fantastic Four was already on issue 5. The first Ant-Man had come out. Hulk number 1 had come out. It only lasted 6 issues. And his first issue, he was gray. And they changed him to green later because it was a lot easier to color and print a green character than a gray one. They had all kinds of issues with the production in terms of a gray hero. An issue I actually owned once upon a time and had to sell it because real life was expensive. And I still cry thinking about it. But the point is, we're talking July 1962. We're entering almost a year from the start of the Fantastic Four, and they only have 3 heroes created. Fantastic Four, the Hulk, and the Ant-Man. The very next one was Spider-Man in August of 62, Amazing Fantasy number 15. Up until that issue, it was Amazing Adult Fantasy, 1 through 14. The title was being canceled. They knew it. They threw this thing together as, what the heck, we're not going to publish any more of these anyway, let's give it a shot. They put this thing together. It was a smash hit, but they didn't hear about it because back in those days you had to write letters, and you had to hear word of mouth, you had to phone people. It took them about 3 months to get all the sales figures from across the country and know what they had and bring him back out in another format. So, that was a smash hit, but they didn't know it right away. They got immediate feedback, but nationwide popularity, they didn't know right then. Thor was invented in Journey into Mystery, number 83. In August as well. So Spider-Man and Thor were both invented in the exact... They were released, publication date, the same month. Strange Tales, okay, brought out Human Torch in his own kind of solo book. They featured him in Strange Tales. Then they had Human Torch in The Thing. Then they invented, in issue 110, Doctor Strange. And all that cast of characters. And they started adding, we're talking 1963. You had, let's see, where are we at here? Iron Man, Tales of Suspense number 39 was created in March.
That would be you.
Well, I'm not answering it. Okay.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Why do we even have to deal with this?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is, that's my nephew.
Ah.
Poor timing! Oh, good, and now we're shooting selfies. Whatever.
We're there!
I hate my loaner cell phone, and I hate Sprint. I think I mentioned that once before. The point is, slow start. It took them 8 months to publish each month, and they started slowly adding heroes. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say,
now,
by July 1963,
they had a pretty full slate. Right?
Yeah.
The closest I get to Amazing Fantasy 15 is Spider-Man 6, which is the first appearance of the Lizard. Big artists at the time for Marvel were Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, Don Heck, and these guys had all cut their teeth in the Golden Age on every type of comic book there was, because Jack Kirby and Simon created Captain America in the first place. But they drew everything, as we mentioned before, anything that would sell when things started dying in the 50s. You've got the Avengers, the second super team. Now, what's interesting about these guys is you have Thor, the Hulk, Iron Man, and Giant Man, and the Wasp. And this team was about to change later on. In issue 4, Captain America was not part of the original Avengers. In issue 4, they brought him back. Thawed him from, they retconned a story that he had fallen on the ice and been frozen in suspended animation, and they brought him back, and then he joined this team, A Man Out of Time, 20 years, and from then on it was history. He got his own book, finally, Captain America number 100, but that was because he was a co-feature with Iron Man and I think Tales of Suspense. And up until issue 99, he didn't have his own book. Then he got his own book at issue 100. That's what the Marvel did a lot of, is they brought their characters along and developed them. The cast of characters for each character in anthology books, like DC did with Showcase and Brave and the Bold and whatnot. You had Journey into Mystery, Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, all creating characters and then having offshoots that wound up in their own book. The X-Men was invented in this time period. Super Teens, Mutants, I think that was the first time that word was ever used in comics. But the idea being they were kids that genetically had something extra. There wasn't anything wrong with them. They were basically meta-humans, kind of putting a reason, a scientific reason for behind the concept. Throughout the Marvel Silver Age, they spun the heroes off into their own books. Then you started getting reprint books, Marvel Tales reprinted Spider-Man, etc., etc. Once Marvel started unleashing its creative force and inventing all these new characters, it buried DC in terms of being innovative. It was like a second golden age, especially in the area of the middle 60s. Silver Surfer, Galactus, Black Panther. I mean, they invented Doctor Doom. All of these people that are household names now were invented in that time period, while DC had a whole different formula. And the big thing with Marvel is that its heroes were flawed, regular human beings. They had personal problems. They could relate to the average person and vice versa. And with DC, it was a more straight-laced formula, and they got passed completely by Marvel all the way till about the 70s. Even though DC had a 5-year head start in the Silver Age, Marvel literally hit the ground running from 61 on and destroyed them. Their sales figures, popularity, they owned the 60s. Things started cooling off for both again in the 70s. And then we get into the Bronze Age. There was a tidal implosion. We can get into that later. But the second greatest concentration of brand new heroes created in terms of superhero genre was in the 60s, and it was Marvel. Even beyond what DC did. DC deserves all the credit in the world for saving comics and bringing back the characters that would do it. But Marvel took that concept, refined it, mastered it, and didn't look back until everybody started losing sales in the 70s. We can get to that next week. What we want to do right now is show you some cool stuff that we found while poking around in the shelving units. We have so many books.
Some cool stuff. So we were just talking about Captain America and Marvel. So I figured this one is a fun little book that I would say not a lot of people are aware of, because most of the people that I tell about this, they're like, what?
Yeah, Cap needs a shave. Pretty
little bit, yeah. This would be part 5 of 6 of the Cap Wolf saga, guys.
Captain America as a werewolf.
Yeah. Ticks included, right?
Well, you know.
So...
But they're patriotic chicks.
They are. Red, white, and blue and all that.
Yeah.
Red. And the cool thing about this is it's just a fun little piece, and if you guys want the whole set, it's just amazing. So I'm going to move on past Cap Wolf, although Cap Wolf is sweet, especially, you got Wolverine.
How do you move on past Cap Wolf? We'll put in here.
Well, because I've got like this really huge deal that I want to talk about. Or should I wait on these?
No, it's time for Infinity. We need so much Infinity right now.
So guys, what you have here is 3 different kind of tiers of storyline.
This is the start.
Yeah.
And Jim Starlin developing the concept through 2 complete miniseries. All of these are complete.
Infinity Crusade is kind of super shiny, so I want to... in all these books, it is... it's so gorgeous, too. Great stories, too. Hey, that's Cap Wolf.
Cap Wolf.
I was like, that's not an Infinity thing.
No.
Infinity Fleas, maybe, but...
It's entirely possible. Everybody here needs a flea.
Imagine Thanos as a flea. So you know what's really
with crazy cosmic powers.
Can you
imagine the size of that gauntlet? Never mind. Anyway,
the tiniest gauntlet ever.
Yeah, you couldn't even see the Infinity Gems.
We should talk about this because it's super popular right now.
Well,
because of the Netflix TV show.
Which one's that?
The Defenders.
Oh yes, the Defenders. They have just begun their television careers. Well, it's kind of fitting because this Submariner 2-issue storyline is the beginning. It's the prototype of the Defenders pulling together as a unit, and they explored that later in, I think, Marvel Premiere, and then they gave them their own title. But I believe this is the first prototype for what would be the Defenders team later in the second issue. The issue after that completes the storyline. So that's really cool. So like a first appearance story.
For a little piece of history.
Yeah, and you're not going to get the Defenders #1 for that because that's more like $40, $50, $60 depending on your grade. So this is a neat little way to get a hold of a key involving the Defenders at an affordable price.
So I got this big box.
That looks.
This looks what?
Like a lot of reading.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know what this is, don't you?
That looks like the Watchmen, but what have we got here? Hardcover?
Yeah,
they are hardcover.
I think they are hardcover. It's either they are totally hardcovers. So I'm gonna move this out of the way. We have Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias and the Comedian.
Yeah, it looks like the prestige kind of hardcover editions.
Yeah,
and this full slipcase and the whole bit.
So we've got this whole thing going on, and it's just gorgeous.
We also have trade paperbacks of this, but for those who just love the Watchmen, hardcover, it's kind of like people that buy price guides. Hardcover is often a way to go because they're sturdier. But we do have the paperback editions as well, and a lot of the trade paperbacks for the Watchmen and virtually anything else.
That and the Watchmen are super important right now in DC.
Absolutely, and we don't even know how much yet. That's still developing.
Yeah.
Over the next year, actually.
It's just wow. Because we just had a touch on the storyline in number 21 and 22 of both Batman and Flash, respectively.
Which didn't answer all the questions, so there's more coming.
Well, why would they answer the questions?
Well,
they had to do other stuff, like in Batman number 24, Rebirth number 24.
Yeah,
that was a great issue. But we're not talking about that issue right now. We can talk about that issue later.
Well, it's nice to know that there's more coming and that they're now actually
utilizing
part of the same universe.
Yeah.
So the interactions with these characters and the DC characters could be really cool. A lot of combinations could be very interesting.
Have you read Dark Knight's Metal yet?
I have not. Apparently that is, one of the reasons I haven't is because you can't get them.
You need one.
They fly off the shelves
you
whenever
need one.
You get to see them.
Actually, they have already sold out of their first printings.
Of course they have.
You know how people wish that, Vertigo characters would be acknowledged in normal DC?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Totally. It's amazing. I know that we usually talk about the older books right now, but it's worth talking about.
Oh, this segment of time is all about new things right now. It's whatever we think they should be checking out. This is
Dark Knight Metal.
Dark Knight Metal. And the various crossovers, yeah. Because
like the one that I'm the most excited for is The Drowned, which is basically an Aquaman-ish Batman, but she's got a trident and a revolver, and it's just amazing. Also,
Batman with a revolver. What's the worst that could happen?
Also, Dawnbreaker, which is the Green Lantern version.
Also, there has to be a Flash version.
Red Death.
As soon as this is over, find me one of those.
Yeah, well, it's not out yet, but it will be.
What?
The Cyborg.
How long do I have to wait for this thing?
A couple months. However, the one and the Cyborg one is called Murder Machine, and then I can't remember the one for the Doomsday Superman one, and I can't remember the one for Wonder Woman, but they're both going to be amazing.
He's the comic relief, right? Because this is very dark right now.
It's all dark.
All dark all the time.
And it actually, I believe it ends with The Man Who Laughs.
Oh boy.
And then we have another...
Like he needs to get more dangerous.
And then we have another storyline Basically, it's called White Knight, where the Joker is a good guy in this storyline.
I can't process all of this.
Yeah.
I need some time.
All right, so I believe that's it, Jeff.
All right.
Is that it?
Works for me.
I think that's it. Do we just stare at each other now? I don't wanna
Well,
stare.
you know,
I feel uncomfortable.
you're always uncomfortable.
I'm always uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, it's what living
I
in
think we
Michigan
just
does
got a
with the
light.
humidity. And
Somebody gave us a light for being
a
uncomfortable.
light for being uncomfortable?
Yep.
Well, what if we just stared at the camera?
Make them uncomfortable?
Until next week. Bye, comic. Read a comic.